Why is it so hard to truly love ourselves? Think about it. We can fall in love with someone else in a matter of seconds. We can admire people we barely know. And yet when we look in the mirror, when we face our own thoughts at night, love feels so far away. We try. We tell ourselves positive affirmations. We practice self-care. We buy books and creams and courses. But deep inside, something still whispers, I am not enough. Carl Jung believed that this struggle is not an accident. He saw that self-love is not a shallow practice. It is a profound journey. A journey most people never dare to take. Because real self-love means turning towards the parts of ourselves we spend a lifetime trying to escape. Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. In other words, to love yourself, you cannot only love the light. You must also learn to love the darkness. Think of the parts of yourself you dislike. Maybe your jealousy, your anger, your insecurity, the moments you felt weak or ashamed. We spend so much energy hiding these parts from the world, and even from ourselves. Jung called them the shadow. And here lies the paradox. Until you embrace your shadow, you cannot know true self-love. And this isn't just philosophy. You can feel it in daily life. Have you ever noticed how the things you hate most in other people are often the very things you can't accept in yourself? That's projection. When you reject a part of your inner world, you end up seeing it outside of you, chasing you in every relationship. So what do we do? How do we begin? Here's a simple practice. Take out a piece of paper tonight and write down 3 things you often criticize yourself for. Just 3. Maybe, I'm too sensitive. Or, I procrastinate. Or, I get jealous. And then, here's the key. Ask yourself, if my best friend came to me with these exact words, how would I respond? Would you tell them they're worthless? Or would you look them in the eyes and say, it's okay, you are human, and you are still worthy of love? That shift, that simple act of turning compassion inward, is the beginning of self-love. Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And isn't that true? It feels terrifying, but also liberating. Because when you stop running from yourself, you discover that love was never missing. It was waiting for you inside all along. We live in a world that constantly tells us who we should be. Look around. Every screen, every ad, every post on social media carries the same hidden message. You are not enough until you look like this, live like this, achieve this. And so we build masks. Jung called this the persona. The persona is the version of yourself you show to the world, the polished image, the smile when you're tired, the confidence when you're insecure, the perfect Instagram photo hiding the tears you cried the night before. And don't get me wrong, the persona isn't bad. We all need a social mask to function, to work, to interact. But here's the problem. When you start to believe that the mask is your true self, you lose touch with the deeper reality of who you are. This is why so many people today feel empty. Outwardly, they look fine. Maybe they even look successful. They have a job, friends, maybe a partner. They post pictures of vacations and achievements. But inside, a quiet voice says, this isn't me. This isn't the whole story. Jung believed that this split between who we really are and the mask we wear is one of the great causes of human suffering. Because the more you identify with the persona, the more you push your real self. your fears, your doubts, your shadow, into the dark. And every time you reject a part of yourself, you make the gap wider. That's why self-love today is so difficult. It's not just about fighting inner criticism. It's about living in a culture that profits from your self-doubt. Think about it. If you loved yourself fully, would you need half the things you buy? Would you need to compare yourself every morning to people you've never met? Number. The entire system is built on your insecurity. And Jung would say that insecurity comes from mistaking the persona for the self. So, how do we work with this? How do we start bridging the gap between the mask and the truth? Here's a practice for you. The next time you scroll on social media and you notice yourself comparing, pause. Don't fight the comparison. Just ask yourself, what mask are they showing me? And then ask, what mask am I wearing right now? Maybe you realize that the influencer showing a perfect life also hides their shadow. Maybe you realize that your own profile only shows a fraction of who you are. This doesn't mean the mask is fake. It just means it's incomplete. And then, gently, you can ask, what would it feel like to love the part of me that never makes it to the photos? The part that feels tired, anxious, insecure. The part no one applauds. That's where the work begins. Jung would remind us, the self is not interested in perfection. The self longs for wholeness. And wholeness means to hold both, the light of the persona and the depth of the shadow. And here's something very practical you can do. Tonight, when you're brushing your teeth, look into the mirror. Not the quick glance you usually give yourself, but really look. Notice your face without the filters, without makeup, without adjusting the angle. Notice the tiredness, the wrinkles, the little imperfections, and instead of judging, try whispering, this too is me. And this too is worthy of love. It sounds simple, but do it every day for a week. And notice how difficult it actually is. That resistance you feel, that's the shadow. That's the part of you you've been taught to reject. And the moment you stop rejecting it, you open the door to true self-love. Because loving yourself is not about falling in love with a perfect image. It's about making peace with the imperfect truth. There is a part of you that you rarely show, a part you hide, even from yourself. Carl Jung called it the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It's not the monster under the bed. It's simply the sum of all the qualities you have pushed away, the things you told yourself. I must never feel this. I must never show this. I must never be this. Think about the moments you get jealous, but pretend you're fine. The anger you swallow because you don't want to be difficult. The sadness you cover with a smile. Over time, all of those unexpressed emotions, all of those rejected parts of yourself, move into the shadow. But here's the paradox. The more you push something away, the more power it gains over you. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is why we often repeat the same painful patterns. We attract partners who trigger us in the same way. We sabotage ourselves at the very moment things go well. We react to small things with outsized anger. It's not because we are broken. It's because the shadow is speaking, and we're not listening. Now here's where self-love enters. Most people think self-love means ignoring the shadow, covering it with positivity, pretending it isn't there. But that's not love. That's denial. True self-love means turning toward the shadow, sitting with it, listening to it. And here's the hardest part, embracing it as part of yourself. Let me give you an example. Imagine you feel jealous of a friend's success. The shadow voice says, "You're small. You're not enough. You'll never be like them." And so you shame yourself for even feeling jealous. You add rejection on top of rejection. But what if instead you paused and asked, "What is this jealousy trying to tell me?" Maybe it reveals a part of you that longs to create, to grow, to shine. The jealousy isn't proof that you are unworthy. It's a messenger. It points to a hidden desire. This is what Jung meant when he said that the shadow holds not only darkness, but also light. Inside the shadow lies creativity, passion, and strength. All the things you buried because someone once told you they were too much. So, how do you begin working with your shadow? Let me share a practice. Take a notebook and write at the top, "Parts of myself I struggle to love." Then, without censoring, list them. Maybe it's, "I get angry easily. I'm insecure. I procrastinate. I feel needy." Whatever comes, write it. Now, next to each one, write the question. What is the gift hidden inside this? If you procrastinate, maybe it shows you have a deep need for rest, for creative incubation. If you feel needy, maybe it shows your longing for deep connection, a longing that makes you capable of real intimacy. If you get angry, maybe it shows your inner fire, your sense of justice. By reframing the shadow, you start to see. These parts are not enemies. They are exiled children, waiting for your love. Another exercise. Notice your triggers, the people who irritate you, frustrate you, anger you. Instead of blaming them, ask, what part of me is being mirrored here? That loud colleague who dominates every meeting, maybe she reflects the assertiveness you suppress in yourself. That friend who always complains, maybe he reflects your own hidden exhaustion that you never admit. The world becomes a mirror. Every trigger is a flashlight pointing at your shadow. And here's the truth. The moment you begin to love your shadow, you begin to experience a freedom you've never known. Because you no longer spend your life hiding, performing, rejecting. You can finally breathe. Imagine looking in the mirror and saying, "Yes, I am sometimes jealous. Yes, I am sometimes insecure. Yes, I get angry. And yes, I am still worthy of love." That is self-love, not perfection, not positivity. Wholeness. Jung believed that the shadow is the doorway to the self. And if you have the courage to walk through it, you discover that everything you thought made you unlovable was the very soil in which love was trying to grow. When Jung spoke of self-love, he didn't mean it as the end of the journey. He saw it as the beginning. Because for him, the goal of life was individuation. The process of becoming whole, of becoming who you truly are beneath all masks and conditioning. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It's about uniting the fragments of your soul, the light and the dark, the conscious and the unconscious, the persona and the shadow. And when these opposites come together, something greater emerges. Jung called it the self, the deep center of your being. Most people mistake the ego for the self. The ego is the I you know, your thoughts, your daily identity, the voice that says, "This is who I am." But the self is larger. It is the totality of you, the part that dreams at night, the part that holds forgotten memories, the part that feels connected to something greater than yourself. Self-love is the bridge, because if you cannot love the fragile, messy human parts of you, How can you ever connect with the vastness of yourself? Jung would say, the self is not interested in your image. It doesn't care if you are popular, beautiful, or successful. It cares about truth. And every time you turn toward yourself with love, even for the parts you dislike, you align more with that truth. Think of it this way. The world constantly pushes us to build an identity that fits, a role, a brand, a reputation, and that's fine. We all need to function. But individuation asks, what lies beyond the role? Who are you when no one is watching? And here's the paradox. The more you drop the need to be someone, the closer you come to your real self. Self-love gives you the courage to stop performing and start living. Let's make this practical. Imagine there are two voices inside you. One is the ego voice. You must succeed. You must not fail. You must be liked. The other is the self. Quiet, deep, whispering. You are already whole. You are already loved. Every act of self-love, every time you embrace your shadow, every time you speak kindly to yourself, you are choosing the self over the ego. Try this reflection. At the end of your day, write down 3 moments when you felt most like yourself. Not the version others wanted you to be, but the moments where you felt aligned, alive, authentic. It could be something small, singing in the car, laughing with a friend, speaking your truth in a meeting. Those are glimpses of the self. And then ask, what can I do tomorrow to live more from that place? This is individuation in action. Small steps of choosing authenticity over masks. And the more you practice, the more you realize. Self-love is not selfish. It's sacred. Because when you stand in your wholeness, you stop demanding from others what you haven't given yourself. You no longer need to control, to grasp, to prove. You can love others freely because you are no longer starving for love inside. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that journey begins, always, with the simple, terrifying, liberating act of loving yourself." So the question is, how do we take Jung's wisdom and bring it into our daily lives? Because it's one thing to understand the theory, but real transformation happens when you live it. Let me give you 3 practices to begin cultivating self-love in a Jungian way. The first is what I call the shadow journal. Once a week, sit down and write honestly about the parts of yourself you usually hide. Don't filter, don't judge, just write. Today I felt jealous. Today I felt small. Today I was afraid. And then instead of criticizing, ask, what message is hidden here? What is this part longing for? This simple shift transforms shame into insight. It turns the shadow into a guide. The second practice is mirror compassion. Every night when you brush your teeth, look at yourself in the mirror. Really look. Notice your tiredness, your imperfections, the things you usually try to hide. And instead of avoiding them, whisper, "This too is me. And this too is worthy of love." It may feel awkward at first, but if you repeat it daily, something softens. You begin to see yourself not as a project to fix, but as a human to love. And the third is a letter to the self. Once a month, write a letter to yourself as if you were your own best friend, your own parent, your own partner. Write what you long to hear. I'm proud of you. I see your effort. I know it's hard. I love you exactly as you are. Keep these letters. On difficult days, read them back. You'll realize that the love you've been searching for outside has always lived inside. Now, I know these practices are simple, But simple doesn't mean easy, because every time you turn toward yourself with love, the ego will resist. The old voices will rise. You're not good enough. You don't deserve this, and that's okay. That's the moment you know you're on the right path. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But imagine the freedom on the other side of that terror. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you no longer need to hide, to prove, to perform. Imagine being at peace in your own skin. That's the gift of self-love. That's the beginning of individuation. And here's the beauty. When you learn to love yourself, you don't just heal yourself. You heal your relationships. You heal your connection to the world. Because the love you give to yourself overflows naturally into everything you touch. So as we close, I want to leave you with a reflection. Tonight, before you sleep, place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I am enough. I am whole. I am loved." Say it once, say it twice. Say it until your body believes it, because every time you do, you take one step closer to becoming who you truly are. And if this journey speaks to you, if you feel called to explore Carl Jung's wisdom more deeply, to discover the hidden dimensions of the soul and the mind, then I invite you to join me here. This channel, Soul of the Mind, is a space where we walk this path together. So if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And if this message resonated with you, share your reflections in the comments. I would love to hear your story. Remember, self-love is not the destination. It is the path. And every step you take in love brings you closer to the wholeness of yourself.